Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're discussing Rosario Dawson and specifically the controversy surrounding her casting as the legendary Ahsoka Tano. Initially, feedback was positive as comicbook.com reported Star Wars fans loved and continue to love the casting. As an added bonus, it's been known for some time that Rosario is a fan herself and really wanted to portray this character. But of course, it wasn't long before the naysayers reared their heads. Bounding into Comics reported that people were demanding the role be recast. The allegation was that Rosario is transphobic and that she beat up a trans person for being trans. Now, this did sound unbelievable to me because there had not been any reports of Rosario being arrested, charged, let alone tried and convicted for doing any such thing. And as famous as she is, that's certainly something that would have been on the radar. So I did a search of the net to see if I could track down where these rumors began and found simply references to a civil suit where the plaintiff was making these allegations seeking monetary damages. Well, here's the problem. A civil suit is not proof of anything. Anyone can sue anyone for any reason. And every suit is comprised of self serving, one sided allegations, often repetitious and entirely out of context, especially when it's money that's being demanded. Petitioners are inclined and incentivized to make themselves out to be the most sympathetic victim they can. That's how this works. So I was interested in finding out exactly what these allegations really were. I went directly to the LA County website because all of the information is publicly available there, and I performed a search. I found the lawsuit, which was filed in October 2019, and pulled the documents, of which there are many. Today, we're going to get down to the bottom of this controversy and decide for ourselves if there's any reason to believe the allegation that Rosario Dawson is transphobic or that she committed a hate crime. Stay tuned. So we're going to start by taking a look at the complaint itself. Here's the caption of the complaint. On the left, identified as plaintiff, is Deidre Finley, also known as Diedrich Finley. This is the person who filed the lawsuit. And on the right, there is identified all the legal grounds for the action. I won't focus on all of these because not all of them actually relate to Rosario, and as Rosario's attorney points out, not all of them are even applicable. Don't worry if that doesn't make any sense, we'll come back to it later. Mainly, I'm interested in these: the allegations concerning assault and battery, breach of contract, and the labor dispute. Next, we'll take a look at the parties. These are the people actually involved in the suit. We already know who plaintiff is, but these are the defendants. First, there's Rosario Dawson, obviously, Isabel Dawson, her mom, Gregory Dawson, her dad, and Gustavo Vasquez, her brother. Next, we'll take a look at the facts as alleged by Finley, starting with how this whole thing began. Finley says that on or about October 20th, 2017, Isabel invited Finley to move from New York to Los Angeles to perform construction work for Rosario. Now, remember what I said about complaints being self-serving, one-sided, and out of context? It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me that anyone would invite someone to move across country for construction work. There are plenty of construction workers in California. And note that there's nothing here to suggest Finley had any particular set of skills or certifications or expertise in the field. Also, Finley doesn't tell us who initiated this conversation or why, which makes the omission seem intentional and deceptive. What you'll learn later is that these people had a 20-year acquaintance. This makes me wonder whether this was some kind of a favor. And because how the conversation began is left out, that further suggests to me that Finley initiated the conversation. And why would anyone initiate a conversation about a job unless they're asking for work or money or both? Notable here is that the initial agreement was with Isabel. When you read on, you learn that Finley would be moving into Isabel's home at 5755 Beck Avenue. So let's take a look at the residence. So this is the home, and the photo is taken from April 2019 according to Google. I want you guys to take a look at the air conditioner and the screen. That will be relevant later. Next, we'll just take a look around the neighborhood. As you can see, this is a really nice part of LA. It looks kind of expensive too. Okay. All right. What do you guys think? Now let's take a look at the expectations here. Initially, Finley intended to relocate to Los Angeles for approximately 6 months. Again, that's information to keep in mind for later because it will be important. It goes on to say that Isabel convinced Finley to permanently relocate with the promise of a full-time job, stating Rosario will always need work. Always. I want to stop here because this doesn't really make any sense. Maybe that is what Finley believed, but there's no way Isabel, Rosario, or anyone else with common sense would agree to those terms because no one can fulfill them. It's impossible to guarantee. It's much more likely that if there was an agreement, it was for a term, and that term would be 6 months. Then it says Finley was further enticed by Rosario, who provided funds to facilitate the relocation. Quite a turn of words. The family offered a job, a place to stay, which you'll later learn was free, and Rosario paid Finley's way. I mean, these just sound like horrible people. Just truly terrible. And the language is interesting. Insisted, convinced, enticed. This language is the kind you have to look out for in complaints for damages or financial compensation, because it's often used to remove all sense of responsibility and shift blame. Finley made choices here, even if circumstances necessitated them, and that's important to remember. In the next section, Finley gets into the losses allegedly incurred as a result of these decisions, relying on the family's promises to provide steady employment and housing. But Finley talks about selling a truck, getting a U-Haul, and leaving behind a support network in New York. The support network in New York was left behind, but it was available by phone. I mean, we have technology in this country. And since the original plan was for Finley to return after 6 months anyway, was this really a loss? You'll find later that at the 6 month mark, the family wanted Finley out anyway. So I'm not sure what this is really about because all of this would have been considered and factored in the original 6 month plan. Notable here is that Finley mentions nothing about losing a home or another job, which may suggest Finley had neither. Again, this makes the whole thing seem even more like a favor for a friend, perhaps on hard times. Scroll down a bit, and we see that it was in December of 2017 that Finley moved in and Isabel moved out, and Finley was not required to pay rent. So that's how we got here. And next, we're going to get to the meat of the matter. The complaint goes on to allege that Rosario's family misgendered Finley multiple times, but only includes here the examples we're about to discuss. And Rosario is accused of doing nothing about it and misgendering Finley herself at least once. Now, Gregory's comments were part of what's described as a tirade in response to what he apparently judged to be Finley's subpar work performance, saying things such as, "You're not a man because a man wouldn't work like this," and "fucking idiot, what are you doing? What's wrong with you?" While completely and totally unprofessional, there's really no reason to believe he wouldn't have been just as abrasive if Finley hadn't identified as anything else while doing a poor job. In Isabel's case, it was when she came over to move the remainder of her things out of the home that they got into it. She noticed it was in a mess and, quote unquote, ordered Finley to clean up. Finley's response was dismissive to this person who got Finley a free house in LA in the first place, saying something like, "We'll talk about it in the morning." So Isabel went off. And Finley, like any normal person, allegedly videotaped the entire incident. But for what exactly? A lawsuit? Hmm. As in Gregory's case, this outrage seems triggered more so by Finley's own behavior, and would have been the same even if Finley hadn't changed names and pronouns. So, of course, by now, the family has had enough, and by the end of February 2018, they send Finley a notice to vacate. They send this notice by text, which is apparently insufficient notice in California. But what's important here is that Finley is given until May of 2018 to get out, which was precisely in line with the original 6-month plan. Again, this suggests that the 6-month plan was the plan all along, and the family was not only recognizing it, but respecting those terms. And here's another thing that really stood out to me. Paragraph 29 says, at no time was Mr. Finley given any warnings for poor work performance or given a poor work evaluation. Now we know that's not true. In a trial, a judge or a jury can disregard the entire testimony of a person found to have lied. And even though I had questions about the slanted nature of the story all along, from the convenient omissions to the contorted language, now I'm not inclined to believe any of it because this is quite obviously not true, and the story that follows is equally unbelievable. And now for the epic battle. According to the complaint, in late April, Isabel and Rosario came to the house to discuss Finley's plan to vacate. What was Finley's response? Well, now's not a good time. The complaint describes Isabel as basically losing it, going to the window, yelling about the air conditioner belonging to her, and I quote, she further threatened Mr. Finley that if he did not move out, she would physically attack him and kill his cat. She then ripped the screen off the window and attempted to remove the venting tube from the air conditioning unit. As Mr. Finley stated that he is going to call the police, Isabel grabbed Mr. Finley's arm, with which he held his phone, and pulled Mr. Finley outside through the window by force and threw him to the ground. Now, come on. You can tell by how this paragraph is written, there are details missing. Keep in mind, Isabel is outside. The air unit is in the window, and you remember seeing where it's located in that photo. If we believe this, that Isabel began removing the air conditioner, we should also believe that Finley tried to stop her. It's the only way Finley's arm would have been within her reach. Inside, Finley was perfectly capable of calling the police. And given this blatant omission, what makes more sense to me is that the two got into a fight, one that they mutually participated in, and both ended up on the ground. Yet again, though, the principal question is, what about Rosario? Well, in paragraph 33, Rosario is accused of sitting on top of Finley and actively restraining him. And I'll say what I've said before. If a mother and daughter are involved in a physical altercation, it's likely that one is trying to protect the other. I don't believe for a second that Finley was just lying there helpless in all of this. The only way the scenario as described in the complaint would have played out is if Rosario put herself between them. And in doing so, Rosario was more likely than not trying to restrain Finley from hitting her mom. Now, could Finley have perceived this as her helping her in an aggressive manner? Possibly, if you want to give Finley the benefit of a doubt. But as it stands, Rosario is denying these allegations outright, so it's one person's word against the others. And you'd think after all of this that Finley would just leave and go back according to the original plan. But nope, not so much. It wasn't until September of 2018 that Finley finally left, and it wasn't until a year later that this suit was actually filed. Now, this part gets into the procedure a little bit, but bear with me because it is kind of important. When a complaint is filed, both sides get to ask one another questions and examine and exchange evidence that might be presented at trial. Rosario's attorney ended up having to file a motion for contempt because Finley failed to do that, refusing to comply with their request for information, which, again, that isn't optional. When Finley finally did respond, the response was incomplete. And in one instance, the response was simply ridiculous, apparently suggesting that $5 million in debt was incurred in that move from New York to LA. $5 million. Now, I don't know about you, but that tells me everything I need to know about the real motivations for this suit. In addition to the motion to compel, Rosario's attorney filed a motion to dismiss, pointing out that multiple causes of action that are listed in the suit back in the caption are not even recognized under California law, including at least one section of the Civil Code that was repealed more than 30 years ago. The hearing on this is scheduled for May 14th of this year. And again, this is all public record. Anyone can search for these records if you like and read every single page for yourself. But after my review, I believe the case is completely baseless. Plaintiff's word simply does not come across as reliable. Descriptions of events are clearly incomplete, and allegations of fact are more what you might call conclusory opinions, not to mention the contradictions and statements that simply make no sense. And there does not appear to be any evidence to support any of it. I cannot believe people are actually using this as a basis to cancel Rosario or otherwise interfere with her career over something that appears to be more a money grab from a disgruntled ex-friend she tried to help. But that's my perspective on all of this. Let me know what you guys think. Share your thoughts below. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.